Hey, shalom, shalom. Knocking the Waha, Bar Sha'ala, we the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, to preach to you so called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, or Israelite foreigners, Nacham, Atam, Kaya, Hamalakwat, Hashemayim, Korah, repent, gave for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. First and foremost, before we get started, I'm going to say, Call Halayim La, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah, Bahasham, Hakwadash. A double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and rule well. And much respect to you, bros out there, pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. All right, so
Shalom.
pretty much today, how you want? All right, we're going into the 12 tribes, or one of the 12 tribes, two of the 12 tribes. All right, which is Zebulun wa Issachar, which is Zebulun and Issachar. Do you want me to start at Genesis 49?
Con, let's start there.
All right, this is Genesis Barashit chapter 49 and verse 1. It says, And Yaiquab called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. I'm skip down to verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
It says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon.
Right,
Issachar.
Zebulon.
Mm-hmm.
Salakia. I just want to touch on Zebulon real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Baba Kushak, can you touch on that word Zebulon, or the name Zebulon?
Khan, when you go into Zebulun, all right, it goes into a dwelling, but when you break it down, Zaba, it's a compound word, or so it's not a compound word, but the root word Hasharash Dabar, the root word Hasharash is the root, and then word is Dabar. All right, but Zabal is that root word that's inside Zabalaman, Zebulon, and pretty much it goes into a habitation, but the ba um inside that word goes into Bayath, which is a house. So when you actually go into the definition of the word, it goes into somebody that's living in a certain area. So going back to the scripture, it says Genesis chapter 49, verse 13, it says, Zebulon shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon, which it goes into pretty much the area that he was dwelling in, the haven of the ships. Present day is the Panama Canal. While you do have several different uh, canals, that one specifically is talking about the Panama Canal, you know.
Right.
And I believe that word Zidon, which is it should be Taza, it should be Tazayadwan. All right, that goes into that's the little omic heads, right?
Uh, Now I believe that goes into like fishing.
Fishing, okay.
Yeah,
Con.
fishing, hunting.
Slacky.
And when you go into the like around that area, that region from Guatemala all the way down to Panama, pretty much that whole region is well known for fishing spots, like sport fishing. You
Okay.
know, as a matter of fact, let me pull something up real quick because I had this pulled up, but I didn't think we'll touch on it. But pretty much this article that I pulled up, this is from crfishingcharges.com. It says, what are the top Latin American sport fishing destinations? And right here you got Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and of course you have other places, but you also got Nicaragua. And all these places is right there in Central America, from Guatemala all the way down to Panama. They're well known for sport fishing.
Mm-hmm.
But also going into what you said, dwelling at the haven of the sea, where he shall be a haven of ships. Hey, that Central America is again is surrounded by water. You know, surrounded by water. When you go to and they also know there Zebulon are what Esau calls the Mayan or the Mayas, right? And when you go to that word Mayan in the Hebrew, I believe is like my
Mayam.
Mayam Khan. That goes into spring, right? Water,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just going into where they were located, man. Just and surrounded by water. And also, like you said, the Panama Canal, right? It says it shall be for a haven of ships. Baba Shah, can you get that article that I sent you?
Con, yeah.
One from Wikipedia.
So I'm just trying to find something.
Con.
All right. Um, So Wikipedia.
God, you don't gotta read all of it. Um, just read like the first little part and then jump down to the next paragraph.
Con. Okay. It says the Panama. You said don't read the first one.
You can read the first sentence of that one.
I said the Panama Canal is an artificial 82-kilometer, 51-mile waterway in Panama that connects the Atlantic Ocean with the Pacific Ocean, cutting across the isthmus. I don't know how to say that word of Panama,
Mm.
and is a conduit for maritime trade.
Right. So this is a major place where trade is being conducted, you know, because they created this Panama Canal, I believe somewhere in early 1900s to create, easy access to from California to what's it called, Spain, or all these other European countries, because they couldn't get through, you know, because if another way in order for them to get to California was to go all the way down south. And down south, whenever you read into this, they talk about how that area is very treacherous, almost like the Horn of Africa. Is
Mm-hmm.
very, it's very treacherous. The waters are very, rugged. So they had to create that in order to, make easy access for that. That's the reason why that place is filled with boats. There's always constant traffic of ships going through there.
And then it says I'm gonna go back up. It says where we at? It says is a conduit for maritime trade. Now, what's spiritual about
Mhm.
this is that word maritime goes into mar, which goes into water, and then also
Mhm.
Zebulon Zabalawan was Mayan or the Mayans. All right,
Mhm.
but that also goes into water, so it's just spiritual, and it all ties together because that in that area to where maritime trade is very prevalent. Just
That's
showing you
right.
that they're the Lord's people.
That's right. That's right.
We'll keep going. It says
Hmm.
the Panama Canal shortcut greatly reduces the time for ships to travel between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, enabling them to avoid enabling them to avoid the lengthy hazardous route around the southernmost tip of South America via the Drake Passage or the Strait of Magellan. It is
Hmm.
one of the it is
Yeah,
one of the
that's
largest.
pretty much the point. No, that's pretty much the point. Oh, you can read that last one, Salakia, the last
Khan
sentence.
says it says it is one of the largest and most difficult engineering projects ever undertaken.
Right. The United States, I think it was first France started creating that, and the next thing you know, United States, took access to that, so that way they could uh pretty much create that passage to make it easier for them. But again, going down that southern tip, that Drake Passage, or what did it say, the Strait of Magellan, that was pretty much very treacherous waters down there. Hence, prophecy, it came to pass in order for, it was written in the scriptures, it's going to come to pass no matter what. Just showing
Mm-hmm.
you who the children of Zebulon are in this day.
Khan. I want to see what it says in the commentary.
God,
See if we got something in the commentary.
I'm gonna read verse 14.
Khan, you got it.
This is Genesis 49 and verse 14. It says, Issachar is a strong ass, couching down between two burdens. Right, and when you look at an ass, what it symbolize, I'm gonna pull this up real quick. I'm just gonna Google it. Um, the symbolism of a donkey or an ass. It says, in contrast to Grecian works, donkeys were portrayed in biblical works as symbols of service, suffering, peace, and humility. Right, and when you read more further down, it talks about how Issachar is a strong ass, man, couching down between those two burns, man, work a hard working people, but also going into those two mountain ranges between the two land masses, United States, and then you got Central America. When you look at the map of Mexico, and you also got those two mountain ranges. I believe it was like uh, the Sierra Madre, the Sierra Madre Occidental and Oriental, which means the west and the east. So when you look at the map, you know, the was a topographical map, I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the mountain ranges, you know, you
Yeah.
see how the United States, I mean, Mexico has two bordering mountain ranges, you know, and then you got a valley in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Just again going into that well, verse 14 says Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got
Kind of.
two symbolisms there.
Mm-hmm.
You got
I had something else to add to Zebulon because it said, oh, what's up? Did you have another point? Because I was gonna get the
no,
scripture.
no, no. You good? You go ahead.
Con. What's spiritual about this is that we're talking about Zebulon and Issachar, but when you look at a map, pull it up. Uh, this is it. This is Issachar, and this is Zebulon. They right beside each other, so
Hmm.
it corresponds with this precept I'm bringing out right now. This is Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 33. We get verse 18. It says, "And of Zebulon he said, Rejoice, Zebulon, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents." And I want to get this word for tents. It says Ahol, or it says Ba Ba'ahoyaka, all right, in thy tents.
Hmm.
And it says nomad's tent, and thus symbolic of wilderness life of Salah. It says tent, nomad's tent, and thus symbolic of wilderness life. Because if you look at how back in those days, back when the early days of what's called Mexico now, and in the early days of where Zebulon was dwelling at, that pretty much
Hmm.
was like a kind of like with the movie Apocalypto. There was like a wilderness
Hmm.
type of lifestyle. They pretty much was they had a civilization, but it was almost like it wasn't how Esau lived, you know.
Right,
But
right.
also going back to this right here, it says rejoice in thy tents, because pretty much they lived amongst each other at one point as the Mayans, and then
Hmm.
also right here they was pretty close on this map, in this biblical map, because
Right.
it's a car right there. They're right beside each other, damn
Hmm.
near right beside each other, you know. But
Yeah, that's
pretty
the
much
spirit.
that prophecy was going into the time of the Mayans and the Aztecs, if I'm not mistaken. And at one point you said they split, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, really, Maya's the word Maya. It goes back a long time, way before. As a matter of fact, I got an article, you know, to prove this. This is from pacelachance.com. It says the earliest major civilization to flourish in Mesoamerica is the Olmecs. Now, Esau likes to say it's the Olmecs, right? Because of the those Olmec heads that Ham put there whenever King Solomon sent them over here, you know, to bring back goods to Jerusalem, right?
Mhm.
So that whenever they came here, they would leave these heads as landmarks to show where they've been. But Esau, you know, he likes to muddle the waters of history. So what he does is he made that seem like that was Issachar or Zebulon, right? Making these
Mhm.
heads. But it says uh, they occupied. Oh, and there's another point I wanted to make is that some of the from like 700 AD, I mean BC to about 100 AD. You know, Esau likes to name that period also a part of the Olmecs. So when you read that part, that's really talking about the Mayas, which was um, a conglomerate. Is whenever they first came here, whenever the tribes first came here to the Americas, pretty much a conglomerate of various tribes, you know, that were here in that landed here, you know, or landed in Guatemala. But it says they occupied the Gulf of Mexico, part of today's Veracruz and Tabasco states in Mexico, appearing around 1500 BCE, which, you know, that's inaccurate because when you really read into that, you know, that's I believe King Solomon's reign was around what 900 AD, something like
I'm not-
900 BC, Slovakia around 900 BC, you know, and then the Assyrian captivity happened around 700 720 BCE, you know, and that's whenever a couple years after that, that's whenever the 12 tribes. As a matter of fact, we can get that in Second Ezra's 13 and verse start at verse 40, Baba Shah.
You said second Ezra.
Yeah, second Ezra 13 and start at verse 40. Because that's going to go into, the origin of where, we came from.
This is second Isaiah, also Ezra chapter 13 and verse 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salamaster the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters. And so they came into another land, but they took this counsel among themselves, which there were another land goes into Aratazah Achar, another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then shewed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Arsareth, which that term descends. It comes from Aratazah Ahar, which you can hear it in the phonetic sound a little bit.
Yes, that's pretty much the point. That's the history of the 10 tribes. That left the Assyrian captivity and came over here to the Americas, right? But point there being, whenever they came over here, they ended up landing somewhere around over here, around the Central America, right? Just to show more of that, I'm gonna read a little bit more of this. It says, apart from the pyramids, drinking of chocolate, and animal gods, the most impressive aspect left behind by the Olmecs are those giant head sculptures on a singular boulder. They wear a mysterious hat, and some are reaching 3 meters high and weighing 20 tons. The Olmecs were the first who practiced a ritual of self-cutting and piercing of individuals, and played the Mesoamerican ball game. This is a feature of many archaeological sites we visited. So here you got Esau, again, mixing different history together in one. He, like I said, he's trying to muddy the waters of who the true tribes are. How's he do that? By changing history, by putting in lies, causing confusion. Because again, when you're reading the scriptures, it tells you that King Solomon sent out Hamites over here on this side.
I got a scripture.
Khan.
This is Psalms, the Holy chapter 144 and verse 11. It says, rid me and deliver me from the hand of strange children, whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. Because Esau, he always gonna play with that deception. That trickery, that witchcraft. That's his strong suit. And pretty much how he was able to. That's pretty much how he was able to conquer the world. And then deceive the masses of the people by his history, his story.
Right. I'm gonna read a little bit more on this. It says, following are the well-known and probably most famous Maya. Their territory covered southeastern Mexico, all of today's Guatemala, Belize, and western parts of El Salvador and Honduras, which, it goes all the way down to Panama. But it says, the word Maya is a collective term referring to people living in those regions. So this is just a collective term at that time. That's what they called themselves at the time, But it says it encompasses different kingdoms established throughout this vast territory. Now, there were several, as a matter of fact, it's going to go into it here in this article, but it says, with a different style of art, building, and religious beliefs, Mayans were master cultivators using a system called the milpa, meaning maize field. The milpa allowed them to primarily cultivate maize, beans, and squash for mass quantity. It says Mayan expanded their farming fields and lived together to eventually create the first Mayan cities. It says the first such city was discovered in Nakbe in the Penton province of Guatemala, dating back to around 750 BCE. So that lines up pretty accurately to whenever the 12 tribe or the 10 tribes left Assyria and the land here into the Americas around 750 BCE. You know, that's whenever they landed here, and that's whenever they created that city, Nakbe. You know, and
Hmm.
I did a little bit of research on that city Nakbe, and it wasn't just one city, it was a series of cities that were created in that region, and they had paths connecting each of these cities together.
I got a quick one. I forgot to get this.
Huh.
This is Baruch Genesis chapter 30 and verse 20. It says, "And Leah said, The Most High hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons." And she called his name Zabalawan, which again that goes into a habitation or a dwelling. Because the Lord gave those two words are related. Zabad, a dowry, and then Zabal, the Zad and the Ba. Pretty much
Mhm.
those two words are related. So that's pretty much how the name Zebulon came into play.
Mm. God. I also want to touch on a little bit on this next article because again we're talking about. I'm just breaking down the point how Issachar and Zebulon were pretty much together pretty much all
Mm-hmm.
the time, and they were pretty much called under one name, like you said. Like I just read the Mayans, it was pretty much a what
Exonym,
do
like
right.
an exonym is like a term that like Esau here do like he'll say, oh, they're black, but internally, like an
Mhm.
endonym, they don't refer to themselves as black. So it's
Right,
something that somebody else calls somebody
right.
else. Yeah.
Con. Yeah, it was like what it says, like it says right here, a collective term. Pretty much they
Hmm.
grouped everything in around that time period by that name. But this is one part right here in this article, or in this next article, um, going into the Toltecs, which those were actually Issachar, which were in that same region, but they were called under that name Toltec. That's after as once it separated from the Mayans.
You want
It
me to get that
says,
article?
yeah, you can read it. It's called worldhistory.org.
Con. Shit. World history. Okay, I got it.
And
It
you can
says
start at the
Tol.
top.
It says Toltec civilization. It says the Toltec civilization flourished in ancient central Mexico between the 10th and mid 12th centuries, continuing the Mesoamerican heritage left to them by earlier cultures. The Toltecs built an impressive capital at Tollan. Ultimately, they passed on the heritage to civilizations such as the Aztecs, who regarded the Toltecs as a great and prosperous civilization, even claiming descent from them.
Right. So that shows you right there that the Aztecs, were once the Toltecs. They descended from them. But the history isn't very clear of how or why the Aztecs separated and then started migrating north. Because whenever you go more further into the Aztecs, which were called the Mexicas, really, that's really their name. That's how they call themselves, the Mexicas. But which the term Mexico comes from, that word Mexica. But they ended
Mm-hmm.
up migrating north all the way to like the western, southwestern part of United States. California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, around that whole region. Issachar migrated over there, but then they came back down and then started calling themselves the Mexica. Now known as the Aztecs.
Kind and if I can even mention, like you said, that pretty much Issachar was in like New Mexico and Texas and all that.
Hmm.
Even back then, you had like a lot of the tribes. They would know that they was related. It was a book that I was reading,
Right.
and pretty much um the two tribes was at war. But they knew that pretty much they married amongst each other. It was Gad and it
Hmm.
was Issachar. Same thing with Reuben. How Reuben like kind of married into the other tribes to keep
Right.
the seed line going.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
keep
you're
going.
right. We broke that down, with Reuben.
Hmm.
How Reuben was able to intermingle with these other tribes because they all knew who they were. They all knew they were related. They were the same people. You got it, Doc.
I got a quick one. This is Ecclesiastes Quahalas chapter 4 and verse 16. It says, "There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit." Because a lot of times Esau like to say, "Oh well, you know, this people, is done away with. They're no longer in existence. The different tribes. He'll say, oh well, they're not here anymore. Stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. But we got examples of that in the spirit. In the scriptures,
Mm-hmm.
and then also how the different books that are here. Pretty much saying
Right.
that the tribes intermingled. During the times like the
Uh,
1900s, 1800s.
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep going though. It says most information on the Toltec comes from Aztec and post-colonial texts documenting earlier oral tradition, Salat. However, these
Mm-hmm.
are by no means complete, and information can be colored by Aztecs' particular reverence for all things Toltec, their delight in merging myth with fact to help establish a lineage with these old masters. It says,
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, a careful comparison with earlier Mayan texts and surviving archaeological record does allow for at least the main elements of the civilization to be outlined.
You can read the next paragraph.
Con. It says the Toltecs had roots in the Tolteca Chichimeca people who during the ninth century had migrated from the deserts of northwest Cujacan in the valley of Mexico, according to the Aztecs. The first Toltec leader was Say Tech, how do you say that?
Yeah.
Mixcoatl.
Uh,
It says one flint cloud serpent, i.e., the Milky Way, and his son C. Atkul toppled Zen, one reed sacrificer born in 935 or 947, would go on to gain fame as a great ruler, acquire the name of the great lowercase g god Quetzalcoatl, which I believe that's going to Yahweh Shah, right?
yeah, yeah. I want to touch on this too because uh, the Aztecs, they had their own, version of Yahushua, which was Quetzalcoatl. And then you had the Mayans, they had the exact same, description, but they called them Kukulkan, right?
Yeah.
When you go into the feathers, which they called it a feather serpent, that's pretty much what it goes into, feather serpent.
Uh-huh.
When you go into that, the word, at least Quetzalcoatl, when you go into Quetzal, that Quetzal part, that goes into this one bird. It looks like a green bird. And when you read in Daniel, it talks about how Yahushua, how Daniel viewed Yahushua and saw him in a pretty much messenger, a barrel, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a green color, right? And
I
then
got a
also
slot.
of Salaki, I just want to make this point. Also going into the bird because hey, Yahushua's flying in them chariots, right? And then when you go into that word, the last part of that word, waddle, it goes into a serpent, which the symbology behind serpent gets known for being wise, right? So that's pretty much it.
Con. I got a quick one.
Con.
This is John chapter 10 and verse 16. It says, and other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. And that one shepherd is Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah, but just proving to you that pretty much
Hmm.
the Lord came on this side, because why else would they have the that name? That's not the
Right.
true name, but pretty much they knew about a story, and it pretty much over time, or however that
Hmm.
transpired, they lost the name, but they understood that
Right.
that they was the people of the Lord.
Right. You also have the Mayans. Y'all can look into this too. It's called the Popol Vuh. The Popol Vuh is like their Bible, like their Torah, pretty much. And when you go into it, it pretty much explains the exact same way the scriptures explain the beginning and the creation of the earth. It talks about a flood. It talks about the crossing of the Red Sea, the splitting of the sea. It talks about the beginning of the creation of the earth, how you had multiple angels contributing into the creation of the universe. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so hey, that just shows you right there, man. Because if say for example the Mayans and the Aztecs, they had no connection with the eastern side of the world. Where did they get this from? Where they
Right.
get this knowledge and understanding? Where they get the understanding of how to build these pyramids? You know, how to read the stars. You know, as a matter of fact,
I
Bubba
got a
Kashab,
question.
Khan, you got it.
This is hey, was it Issachar that built the pyramids?
I believe it was a collective of all of them.
Okay. This is first Debarim Hayamayim, also Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 32. It says, and of the children of Yashakar, Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Yasha'Allah ought do, the heads of them were 200, and all the brethren were at their commandment, which when you go into the times, is pretty much they had knowledge. I'm going to that word, times.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. All right, and it says Salak times. It says experiences, occurrence, occasions. So Issachar could pretty much use the stars in a certain way. That's why when you go down there, they pretty much had the if I'm not mistaken, they had like the different pyramids and stuff like that, like lined
Mm-hmm.
up with the stars and stuff like that. A lot of
Khan.
their architecture was lined up perfectly with
Mm-hmm.
how with different things inside the skies. Because they
Right.
had knowledge of the times.
Right. They would line them up with certain stars, certain what they call them I forgot what they were called, the
Constellations.
constellations. They were having lined up with certain constellations, and that's why also they also created the what is known as the Mayan calendar, the Aztec calendar, right? The what's it called? The Toltec calendar.
Right.
They're all the same thing. All three of them are the same thing, but Issachar was the one that created that. And that's how Zebulun was able to have access to that information because they were living amongst each other, right?
Right.
But again, just when you really go into that, or look more further deep into the Aztec calendar, the Mayan calendar, the Toltec calendar, you pretty much start to this like articles going into how they would have certain prophecies written up, just showing you that Issachar was keeping track of the times, prophecy, going into the high holy days, etc. Man, right? But I also want to get this the book of Genesis, chapter 1 and verse 14. It reads, and the Most High said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for seasons and for days and years. So that's what Issachar used. They used the stars, in Second Ezra 13, the 40th chapter all the way down to I think the 46th chapter. I mean 46th verse. Like we read, Issachar was receiving looking at the stars, getting guided, to come over here on this side of the world. What they will call uh what's that whenever you read the stars to navigate?
GPS.
Con, con. Like that was pretty much their GPS. They'll read the stars and be able to navigate. But also the
Okay.
Most High was showing them signs.
Right. Yeah. Like different like governmental people like that, stuff like that. The ones that pretty much have to use GPS, they actually use the stars and stuff like that to configure, the GPS on the phones.
Mm, con, yeah. Because that's pretty much what they used back then.
Right.
Ships and everything that they use the stars to navigate. Baba Kashak, can you go back to Genesis 49
Okay.
and 15?
This is Barach at the Genesis chapter 49, verse 15. It says, and he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute.
Right, he saw that rest was good. Going into the siesta, right, where they would work early in the morning all the way to when the sun was the highest, the sun was the hottest. They will eat, they'll have like a meal, and then they will rest. Rest for like an hour, hour and a half, and then they'll get back to work, right?
Yeah.
But it also says, and bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant unto tribute. Pretty much, Issachar became a tribute unto Esau eventually, unto the Spaniards. Pretty much doing what they asked for. Because when you go into the history, after they were conquered by Esau, they were pretty much taking orders and commands from Esau the whole time.
I got that word. It
God,
says
you got it.
it says H4522. It says Mas. It says gang or body of forced laborers, task workers, labor
Mm-hmm.
band or gang, forced
Mm-hmm.
service. It says a tax in form of forced labor, taskmaster,
Mm-hmm.
tributary. Pretty much
Yeah.
going into how like Esau have like Issachar down there working for like pennies on the dollar, making
Yeah.
barely anything because they're good workers.
That's right. And Issachar, over there living in that economy over there in Mexico, which is pretty much trash. They don't really got much goods over there. Because Esau done stripped the whole land of its gold and pretty much stripping everything out of that
Mm-hmm.
land. So Issachar don't really got nothing for all the work that they've been putting in. But just showing you that hey, and plus Issachar's a hard worker, man.
Mm-hmm.
Issachar do all the construction. Issachar does all the pretty much the field work. Pretty much all the hard labor, man.
Right. Right.
Baba Bashar, can we get Deuteronomy 33? This is one final point I want to make. Uh, Deuteronomy 33 and start at 18 again.
This is the Barrium Deuteronomy 33 and verse 18. It says, in Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. It says,
Mm-hmm.
they shall, oh, I forgot about this verse. It says, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There shall they, it's like, there
Mm-hmm.
they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they
Right.
shall
That's going
suck.
into Salakia. That's going into pretty much the pyramids that they created. Back then they would offer offerings of sacrifices. I mean, righteous offerings to the Lord. But eventually, that ended up turning into wicked. Started sacrificing their own people. Taking out hearts and chopping off the heads and rolling the bodies down the steps of that pyramid. Right. You can go ahead.
It says, for they shall suck up the abundance of the seas and of treasures hid in the sand.
Right, and that's just going into the oil. Because Mexico is known for having for being a high exporter of oil. As a matter of fact, let me pull this up real quick because I looked this up earlier.
Let's see, I'm gonna run this back. It says, I'm gonna read it again.
Go on.
Verse 19 says, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There shall they so like, there they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck up the abundance of the seas and of treasures hid in the sand, which like you was going into, that goes into the oil, but then also goes into having fruitful land. They
Mm-hmm.
have fruitful land.
That's right. Because I remember, when I was a kid, I went over to Mexico, to visit my family that's over there, and the land was so fruitful to where you had trees, just growing fruit, mangoes, pomegranates, uh, guayaba, tamarinds. I mean, it was everywhere. I mean, you can just walk and you wouldn't even go hungry because there's sugar canes, just growing randomly. Every cornfields. I mean, Mexico is known for its produce. You
Right.
got it.
Oh, keep reading.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. So I got this one little piece of information because I touched on that. It goes into oil as well because Mexico at one point was actually led the world in oil production. I believe it was in like the 1960s. Let me see. But just recently, this is exports in 2021. It says Mexico exported 20.3 billion in crude petroleum, making it the 15th largest exporter of crude petroleum in the world. Because you also had in 2010, you had that one event that happened, Horizon, deep water horizon, in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if you seen that movie, Yuam.
Bah.
Whenever pretty much they had like this big oil drill out in the sea, and they were drilling all this water, and it was so much oil coming up to where they cracked the bottom of the ocean, and all this oil started spewing up and just caught this whole uh that oil rig on fire.
It was
You know,
recently?
that was in 2010.
Dang. Because I remember he
Yeah,
had the one in with the gas pipe maybe like 2 years ago or a year ago.
there you go, man. So there's a lot of oil there in that region.
Yeah.
They just can't really get to it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have.
Kind. Yeah, that was it.
Uh,
Hey, well, I don't worry about the Zaza by Nayapa. Lord's will, there was a beautiful edification through the Spirit. Wow, I don't worry about the Zaza. Adam Yash Layla Tawab. Hey, Lord's will, you all have a good night. We can go ahead and close it up by saying, Call Halayim La Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah Bahasham Racha Kodash. A double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that told us the truth and rule well. And much respect to you, bros, out there pushing this truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. Halayla Tawab, which is good night. Wow, Yahweh Mahar. La Bachayar. A gospel be to the elect. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.